Hello, this is Debbie Spencer at my YouTube channel, Debbie Spencer. I also show my work on Instagram and have an Etsy store under the name of Altered Art Treasures. And I'm here to show you some of what I have done with a subscription box, a monthly subscription box I get from a company in Finland called Paper Garden. Their website is papergarden.fi for Finland, and they also do business under the name of Varalusikka, which is the Finnish word for a little extra spoonful. I kind of discovered Amelia and her husband, their business, by chance, and I love the look of what she does. So I kind of used that as the beginning of my own journal making adventure, because I needed something that provided me with some inspiration and still gave me enough room to use some of my own beautiful vintage supplies and come up with something that didn't involve bookbinding. I've had about 6 of the subscription boxes now, and I think sometime soon I will unbox one for you so you can see what you get, because some of what you see here you get and some you don't. For instance, in this particular kit, you always get a journal. Here's some of the other ones that has a beautiful image on the front that kind of identifies what the color palette is going to be. And the box also includes lots of vintage papers, mostly in Finnish, sometimes in German, oftentimes they're loose and you can rip them apart and use them. Sometimes they're actually stapled into the book. You always get an exclusive little charm, some designed washi tape, usually from designed by Paper Garden, their own design, and also a rubber stamp. My problem is once I get them, I incorporate them into my favorite supplies, and I don't always remember which box came with what stamp or charm or whatever, but you'll kind of get the idea. When I finished one of my I think there's several sizes you can order. I get the traveler's notebook size. But when I finish, in order to make it sturdier, I always put a piece of lace on the spine. And since the back is blank and there is a border in white, I usually use some sort of a stencil, Tim Holtz, or some scrapbook paper edged with washi tape as a way of giving the back a finish just as well. And then sometimes I tie it with the ribbon that's included, or sometimes I might use my own. I think today I'm going to show 2 of these that I've made. This one, of course, is in beautiful colors of teal, and the cover is printed for you. So a lot of times I'll start with some of what's included. She usually includes some lovely quotes, often on vellum. Sometimes lately they've been on vellum stickers. But 1 or 2 pages of images from her collection reproduced, and you can cut these out and distress the edges. And then I combine those with my own pieces of genuine vintage ephemera and textiles that I get from various sources, either through Joann's, or I belong to a junk journaling community called Boho Daydreams, and they are a Facebook group. You can join also. And there are several ladies, the founders, who advertise and for sale beautiful packages of sari fabrics and laces, and that's kind of how I got my collection started. This particular book had a rubber stamp, I believe, of hydrangea, and I used that, combined it with these stickers, which are from a company called Wish. You have to be careful, because Wish is an Asian company that sells things at a really good price, but oftentimes they steal other people's designs and sell them as their own, and I don't like to do that with artwork. I know how precious something is that you've made, but I feel pretty safe with these washi stickers, and that's all I've really gotten from them so far. This particular journal came with a number of pieces of vellum stapled in, and oftentimes I don't decorate those. I kind of like the idea of giving the eye a place to rest and then softening what I may put on either page. This is a great time for me to use some of my broken or recycled pieces of ephemera that I can just kind of collage onto the page. I make charms out of earrings or flat beads. I would suggest that you look in vintage stores for old wedding dresses or formal outfits, or even tablecloths or napkins, because if you cut out the lace parts, they can be so pretty. I find my materials in the most unusual places. This is actually a tuck spot that was made from a sample for a shade, window shade. I used the little chair that was included with my box in this case. I didn't like the little car advertisement, so I covered that up with a sticker of a little kitty and let the gold and the chair motif follow through with the adjoining page. Here's an example of one of the pieces of paper, printed and finished, sometimes in German, that you get, that you can tear and use that as a base. And of course, pieces of lace trim. These are faux button cards, little charms, paper crafting charms, or I think these might be from the Joann's Jewelry department, a great place with their 40% or 60% off sales that you can pick these up. Usually your box includes a piece of rice paper with an image, again a hyacinth in this case, and those are great for decoupage, but I don't usually do that with them. I just kind of tear them and use them. The stamp would have been chosen in this box to go along with the hyacinth and hydrangea theme and kind of the lilac and teal color palette. I use almost everything that the box has, and what I don't use, I put in another place where I can just use it for another project. I even take the stamps off of the envelope that comes from overseas. Varalusikka Paper Garden sends things in such a attractive way, in kind of a flat signature box. And in this case, they put a lot of the ephemera in this bag, which was stamped and just too pretty not to use. So I incorporated it into the piece itself. Even the page width sometimes can add a little bit of visual interest. Layering is something that's fun to do. And adding a Tim Holtz quote or a stamp. Life is in the details. That's another one that was included with a box. You can take a label from a place like Office Max and put some flat buttons or even loose beads and make it into a faux button card. Here's another one. I think that this button card was made from a label, a blackboard label that I got at Michael's. Some more sari trims. I like with whatever the palette of the piece is, I like to kind of mix it up with a few contrasting pages for visual interest. A lot of these washi paper stickers come from Wish, and I use them. I have many different sets in different colors and themes. Another attempt to kind of give the eye something other than just the monochromatic color scheme to look at. I love using fabric swatches and little buttons and buckles, notepads where I just might take a piece or two and use it. These cards were included, and you can use either a rub-on or a stamp. Obviously, this was a piece included in the box that was meant to echo the image on the cover from their own collection. German, I believe. I like to use rub-ons. A lot of my journals, I don't like to actually write in my journals out in the open, because sometimes I have fairly private thoughts and I like to write about them, and so most times I will put my thoughts, and my penmanship's not the greatest either, so I will like use little tags and tuck spaces as my journaling place. Many of my images are vintage. French vocabulary card. And that's this one. I'll show one more on this particular video. This one had a yellow theme, obviously, with a charm. And I further enhanced the cover with some little faux vintage flowers, and this was a greeting card. If I buy a greeting card and give it to a family member, a lot of times I'll buy it because there's a piece with it that if they don't want to keep the card, I can reclaim. This particular yellow, I decided to start out with something a little more playful and some contrast. I had this flat wooden rooster, so I decided I'd go with the yellows of the French Country collection from Graphic 45 and experiment with using a little windowed envelope, or actually a bag, and kind of go with some of my chicken ephemera, poultry ephemera. That's a brad. And a vintage postcard. An old farm book, real farm book from 1918 that talks about poultry and eggs production. And then I moved into a more standard color palette of yellow. This actually came from Michael's several years ago. In their $1 and $2 section, they had mouse pads that were actually pads of paper with different letters of the alphabet. And I went to several Michael's to get as many letters as I could because I've used them in so many ways. This is W for wheelbarrow, but I have N for nest, and M for merry-go-round, and H for helium balloon. Some really neat vintage images that can be used for journaling space and also just to use as a surface. More of my Sorry pieces, Yellow Days, piece of vintage music. I have all of these items both in my Etsy store, and I love making up custom packages in your choice of subjects, colors, styles. The price of a priority mail envelope in the United States is $6.70. For $25, I will stuff it, we'll talk online, and I will stuff it as full of things in your choice: ledger paper, die cards, old book pages, music, whatever things you might be looking for, colors, and so on. This is called a tip-in. A tip-in in the altered book parlance is where you take a piece like a card or a page that's not really part of the page and then you attach it somehow. Oftentimes I'll just use a double roll of washi tape. A lot of these little stamps come from a company that does business as Red Lead Paperworks, and they have a wonderful website. They have their own line of rubber stamps, both large and small, and I especially like the ones that are words and short quotations. As I told you before, sometimes I like to use a contrasting color. This was inspired by a vintage seed catalog, and I just kind of used the pink and also another graphic 45 collection, I think called Princess, to supply me with my scrapbook paper. This is a vintage ad for Persian carpets, so I went with the Persian theme, used a lot of bling and some cards that reminded me of something somewhat bohemian, and made another page that's kind of a surprise, I guess. Back to something more traditional. I learned how to make these little tassels from Varalusikka, the paper garden. You just take a button and you take a piece of thread through it, and then you turn the button over and you double over some fibers. They can be laces or threads or yarn, silk ribbon, whatever have you. You tie it, and then that makes a really cute little dangle that you can either glue or, in this case, pin to the top of your page. Some of the things that came in this particular box were inspired by lemons, so I kind of added to it by using some paint chips recipes from a book I had on lemon pie and iced tea. I love bees, so I've got some little charms. These were actually greeting cards on sale, so I just kind of punched them and further stamped them. And I love this. You actually have a mimeographed sheet of music, I guess, in Finnish, that was in that beautiful shade of yellow. These are from my collection, I think. Old game cards, and I have those as well. Oranges and lemons. I seem to have a song for every occasion from my vintage books. Learning to fly. Here's another one of those rice paper images with a quote and some. I like to stamp sometimes on twill tape or strips of muslin. Stamps. Some more recipes. Fragment of a vintage button card. You may not like the sticker itself sometimes, but if you use it in the right context, these are stickers. They added kind of a rich touch to this page. A little bag that came with my kit, and I added some pieces of my own ephemera, a little piece of dressmaking trim, some word stickers. These little butterflies come from Michael's. And again, another color palette to just kind of give the eye something to look at. Somewhere I've got a little paper clip. I don't know what happened to it, but I'll find it later. More sari trim, handmade paper from a stationery shop. This is the page I don't like very much, but what will happen is sometime down the road I'll decide I don't like it, so I'll either cut it out or I will disguise it and use it in another project. I don't throw away something I don't like. Sometimes it works really well with another project down the road. I have a box, 2 boxes of rejected projects that I don't like anymore, and I will use parts of them sometimes to in another project. This isn't even vintage. You can just look at Walmart or something and get some of these. They used to have, I guess, carbon paper, but you can get different sorts of order books for people who have their own businesses. And I finish up with a page made from a book everybody likes. I should know the author, but she's the one that has the Victorian Ladies Nature Diary with beautiful images that she painted, and poems and comments on each of the months of the year. So those are 2 of the Traveler's Notebook-sized journals that I made, and I look forward to showing you some more of them, or perhaps some other sorts of journals as I'm learning to make them along the way. Thanks for watching. Bye.